Hi guys, it's Alex and you're watching Living Steps. Now, recently I've been telling you that there is no such thing as steps and that you shouldn't worry about it when it comes to Sean-nós. So, what does that mean? How do you approach a performance if there's no steps? We're going to take a look at that today. And we're going to take jigs as an example. Now, why jigs? Well, if you look at Sean-nós dancing, of course, reels are the most common rhythm we dance to. But I think that jigs are an easier entry point, and also jigs are the oldest traditional Irish music rhythm that we have preserved until today. As you probably know, reels came in and became more popular at a later point, but jigs are technically older and hence a little bit more authentic. And I think there's a great symbolism in that because all Irish dancing really comes from doing a shuffle and or a treble, however you want to call it. And shuffles are really the essence of a jig rhythm because jigs are of course in 6/8. So if you do a shuffle on your right foot 1 2 3 and a shuffle on your left 1 2 3, that covers a bar of jig music. So I think it's a great point to start from. So when we look at these 6/8s, one way to play them is to just give, the 1 2 3 2 2 3 1 2 3 2 2 3, right? So you would emphasize the first and the fourth eighth note in that bar, and that might sound something like this. Right? So as dancers, we can approach it by doing the same thing. And that can be shuffles, as we mentioned, so just doing the 1 2 3 2 2 3 1 2 3 2 2 3 1 2 3 2 2 3, and that will naturally be emphasized in the right places. There's other movements you can do as well, of course, like the galloping step or some heel digs, something like that. If it comes to heel digs, though, you do need to make sure that you're doing them in batches of 3 or 6 or whatever makes sense for you so that it fits the rhythm, but you can definitely do that. And it can give you some variation because, depending on whether you're using your heels or your toes, it will give you different accents and some sort of dynamics and tonality to the steps. But of course, it's not really fun to just cover all 6/8s all the time. It would sound very boring very fast. So we need to build some variation. And when it comes to jigs, a good way to do that is to exclude the second and the fifth. So you get kind of a 1 3 4 6 1 3 4 6 1 3 4 6 1 3 4 6, right? And that would sound like, or if you want to mix that, it would be like, well, outside of that roll at the end, of course. And the way you can do it dancing is probably through some heel toe movements or maybe through some walking steps. There's different ways to do it. But you can see from this, that's kind of the way I think about it. It's not that much about your movements, it's about the rhythm that you're trying to make. And you can experiment, you can look for movements, some of them are, and you should of course be conscious that some of those are traditional, some probably not so much. And Sean-nós gives you a lot of liberty to do what you want to do, but you should probably be aware of the ways that the dancers of older times did that, so that you don't do anything that's too experimental. We need to have some boundaries in that, but it's a fairly wide ground that we can use and cover. Finally, you can always use a stamp movement or something of that nature to make a little break in that. And that would probably last, well, typically 3/8 notes, doesn't have to be the case, but for conversation's sake, let's look at it that way. And that will give you some real dynamics and pulse. Of course, you should use it consciously, but that might sound something like this. So that's kind of the basic outline of how I might approach dancing a jig. And now we're gonna move back to Tom Bombadil and we're gonna take a look at a set of jigs that I did with Marko where you can see me applying some of these things. And by the way, as we discussed before, mistakes will happen, and especially in Sean-nós, you can really take the jazz approach to it where, a mistake doesn't have to be particularly bad for your performance as long as you can keep moving and get back into the flow soon enough. And as you're watching this performance, you'll notice I make a couple of mistakes, and one of them is very visible, but I did decide to keep it in there and to give you that version because it shows you that you can keep moving in these situations and these mistakes don't have to look too bad. Especially if you don't sell the mistake in a visible way as I did in this performance. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and if you did, please like the video and share it with your friends, share it with your enemies. I'll talk to you soon.